الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله النبي الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على طاعتك، يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. اللهم ثبتنا عند الموت بلا إله إلا الله. آمين يا رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Inshallah, we're going to go ahead and continue with our class, inshallah. So we have gone through a decent amount of the book here for Ascent to Felicity, and I know a lot of folks have questions. Inshallah, the plan is to finish off a lot of what is mentioned here. And then inshallah, we will get into our Q&A. So as usual, keep your Q&A coming as questions, and I will try to answer them to the best of my ability, inshallah. So let me just open this. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to read on. We had stopped at page 153. Okay. So beforehand, what were we talking about? We were talking about the general type of Umrah, right? We were talking about the different types of Umrah, of Hajj, and what exactly someone does. How do they get into the state of Hajj and whatnot? How do you perform the different rites of Hajj? And we had briefly gone over up here somewhere. Oh, no, not there. I had written it, I think down here then. Yes, so the different types of Hajj that one can possibly do. There's ifrad, there is qiran, and there is tamattu, right? So take like 10 seconds and familiarize yourself with these three. So I'm not going to say anything, just take a look at it. Okay, so everyone should be good there. So what does one do? What are the different types of Hajj that are available? Basically, look, there are three types of Hajj. There's Hajj Ifrad, right? There's Hajj Qiran, and there's Hajj Tamattu', right? One does one Ihram and one Hajj. Generally speaking, Ifrad is you basically only doing Hajj. Okay, Ifrad is you only doing Hajj. That's all you're doing. You're not doing Umrah. You're going to get into Ihram and you're just going to do one Hajj. So that's something important to keep in mind. And many of the books of fiqh, they begin to speak about the aspect of Hajj in the context of it being in ifrad, mainly because of the fact that many of the people that actually live in Mecca, they tend to do Hajj ifrad. You get in, you do your Hajj, and then you basically exit. That's basically it. Then you have Hajj Qiran, in which you're going to have one ihram as well, but you're going to first do one Umrah, and then you're going to do one Hajj. Now, believe it or not, this is actually the one that many of the scholars of fiqh have said, at least the Hanafi say, this is the best to do because of the fact that there is more mashaqqa, there is more hardship associated to it. But you have to keep this in mind that you do not want to overburden yourself. There may be people that want to do Qiran because of the fact that the Messenger ﷺ said to do Qiran, but the Messenger ﷺ also did Tamattu', wherein you're going to have two Ihrams, you're going to have one Umrah and then one Hajj, wherein first you're going to do one Umrah and do all the rites of the Umrah, and then you'll be done with it. And then you're going to get into Hajj and get into a Hajj after that. And that's where basically a lot of the rites will be done of the Hajj as well. In tamattu', it's a lot easier to do. In tamattu', it's the one which basically most of us will be doing. I'm going to be doing tamattu'. Many of us are going to be doing tamattu', mainly because the fact that it's a lot easier as opposed to staying in what do you call it? In ihram the entire time. It just tends to lead to more hardship. Hence, what we would recommend that people do is they do tamattu', mainly because of the fact it will be logistically easier. It would be easier on your body. It will be easier on you as opposed to staying in ihram most of the time while you're at Hajj. So you want to do that. That's the point that you want to keep in mind, right? Hajj ifrad, on the other hand, um, this is usually done by people that are residents in and around Mecca. So that's what that is used for. Okay, so we have, for the most part, familiarized ourselves with a lot of, what's going to be happening in Hajj. So let's continue to, inshallah, read here because we have done most of this. Okay. So before, what did we speak about? We spoke about going to Safa and then doing our ihram. I'm sorry, our sa'i at Safa and Marwa, right? So the last thing that we spoke about was having started at Safa, ending at Marwa. So your sa'i is basically done. Okay. By the way, in all three forms, the Hajj is relatively, it has the same rights. There are just a few things here and there in which one person needs to be aware of that they do. And inshallah, we'll try to talk about that today. But for the most part, it's not the most confusing part of Hajj. So don't be too worried about that, inshallah. The pilgrim then resides in Mecca. So now that you have completed, what did you complete? So you've completed sa'i, all right? What do you do now? The pilgrim resides in Mecca, remaining in a state of ihram, pilgrim sanctity, while staying and taking advantage by performing as many tawafs as possible, right? So you're going to try and do as many tawafs as possible. The point here is that, you know, the if you live in Mecca, you can come by and you can pray salah, you can do tawaf, whatever you want. But here the Hanafis actually say you're in the haram, and you want to make tawaf or you want to pray, right? You have two options. Like you have nawafil that you want to pray or you want to do tawaf. Which one should you do? You should do tawaf. Why? Because of the fact that you will not be able to do tawaf when you leave the haram, but you can still pray if you leave the haram. As for the one performing qiran, right? Hajj qiran. What is Hajj qiran? Let's go back up here one more time. Take a look at this. Hajj qiran is in reference to one ihram, and in one ihram you're going to do one umrah and one hajj, right? So if you're doing qiran, what are we talking about here? So if someone is doing hajj qiran, they are first going to do the umrah, followed by its accompanying sa'i. After that, he also performs the tawaf of arrival, okay? Followed by its accompanying sa'i. He too then resides in Mecca in this state of ihram until they complete the last rites of Hajj, as we shall mention. Now, for those of you choosing to do qiran, I want you to take a look at something. 601. That is, it is recommended for him to perform the tawaf of arrival. If he performs it, he does so in ramal, which is, you kind of do it a little bit faster in the first three. As there's a sa'i, you can join the tawaf afterwards, even though he had already done so in the tawaf of umrah. So here, with qiran, what is someone going to do? You're first going to perform your umrah, okay? You're going to perform umrah first. So what do you do in umrah? You get into ihram. After you get into ihram, you then get to the haram. You start doing tawaf. And then as you're doing tawaf, what do? As you're doing tawaf, you'll complete it. Then you'll go do sa'i, right? So you'll complete that umrah, but you're not going to get out of ihram. Remember, you're in one ihram. In Hajj Qiran, you have one ihram. In that same ihram, right, you have now completed the first umrah. After that, you're going to do the tawaf of arrival, which is the tawaf al-qudum. So now you're going to go back and do tawaf again, another 7. And then afterwards, you're going to do sa'i again. And again, you're still in one umrah, right? One ihram. In that same ihram, you're going to stay in ihram and you're going to reside in Makkah, do ibadah, whatever. And then you're going to move on to doing Hajj, okay? You're going to move on to starting the days of Hajj in that sense. Hence, you understand and you see why why Hajj Qiran is something that can be a little bit more difficult in that sense, right? So that's something you want to keep in mind as we move forward here, right? And even the scholars here, as I'm reading and I'm looking at my notes, the reason that one will do what we'll do here is that they will do qiran, as I mentioned before, is that because there was a sense of hardship associated to it. Not only that, why qiran over tamattu'? They said that it's qiran because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَأَتِمُّ الْحَجَّ وَالْعُمْرَةَ لِلَّهِ, that you should do hajj and umrah for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But again, you want to look at time and place and understand what's the best thing to do. If you make the intention for qiran and you find it to be extremely, extremely difficult, and you have to break out of your ihram or you get sick or something like that, it's better for you to do tamattu' and not have to be in a state where you potentially have to break your ihram for whatever reason. And then you can basically continue on with your Hajj. Okay, so that was Hajj Qiran. Now we're going to talk about Tamattu', right? And by the way, the word Qiran, it's in reference to a form of combining, right? So that's what you're doing. You're combining between what? You're combining between Umrah and you're combining between Hajj, right? At-tamattu' literally comes from the word mim, ta, and ayn, which refers to finding a benefit. So let's talk about Hajj tamattu'. As for the one performing tamattu', the one who entered the state of ihram at the designated boundary, the miqat, with the intention of performing umrah alone. So you're not going into Hajj. You're just saying, Allahumma inni uridu al-umrah. You're just going to do umrah. And you go and you perform the umrah upon entering Makkah, accompanied with sa'i. And then you shave your head. And basically you get out of, ihram. So that's the first part. So for Hajj Tamattu', you're going to do an umrah. And that umrah you're going to do like a regular umrah and you'll get out of ihram. So it's a little bit easier. So 602 over here and 603, what does it say here? Let's see. Meaning what? That you stop reciting talbiyah when you start tawaf, since you will leave the state of ihram before re-entering it for Hajj. So again, when do you we know that within tawaf we don't say labbaik Allahumma labbaik. When you get into tawaf, it's good to say du'as, it's good to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness, to praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, since he will completely leave ihram before re-entering it for Hajj, right? So now you don't recite the talbiyah because you've arrived, you're going to do all the Hajj rites. And now in 603, ihram, you're in such an ihram or in everything. So when you get out of the ihram, right, what is your state? Everything, including intercourse, becomes permissible for them until they re-enter the sanctity for Hajj. Right? Keep in mind, the one doing qiran, they cannot engage in sexual relation. They cannot cut their hair. They cannot cut their nails. They're in the state of ihram for that time period to come. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind here. He then re-enters the state of pilgrim sanctity, right, ihram, from the miqat, right, from the miqat, on the 8th of Dhul Hijjah in order to perform Hajj. The 8th of Dhul Hijjah, brothers and sisters, corresponds to what? The 8th of Dhul Hijjah, and I will need you all to keep this in mind. It's the first day of Hajj. Okay. Which will correspond to June. It will correspond to Friday, June 14th. Okay. It's the first day of Hajj. 604. So if you are doing tamattu', one does not perform the tawaf of arrival, tawaf al-qudum, right? Since he takes the same ruling as a Meccan resident, which is why he enters the state of ihram for Hajj in Mecca as well. Hence, he does the sunnahs of Ramal and Ittiba. Ramal is basically walking quickly in the first three tawafs, and Ittiba is showing your shoulder. In the tawaf of visitation, right? And you will perform the mandatory sa'i after it. All it's saying is that the tawaf of arrival, tawaf al-qudum, is important to do in Qiran, but within tamattu' one does not necessarily have to do the tawaf of arrival because a lot of for example in tawaf al-Qiran that person has already started, right? They're going to do their umrah, but then they're going to continue as well. But within tamattu', this person's obligatory tawaf will be tawaf al-ziyarah, and we'll talk about that soon. Although one can perform Ramal Ittiba Sa'i with a voluntary tawaf after re-entering Ihram for Hajj and before leaving for Mina, which is also valid. Again, validity and preferredness will become commodities when me and you go for Hajj because you'll see how many people are there. You'll see how hot it'll be. What you're going to want to do is not overexert yourself to the extent where you become immobile or you're having like heat stroke. What you want to do is you want to not become too relaxed, but at the same time, you don't want to overexert yourself to the extent where you become a burden on other people. So that's something important to keep in mind. So the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, what are we talking about here? The first day of Hajj. On that day, what are we going to do? You're going to get into Ihram, right? So like if I were to make a little list over here, right? Day one, right? Day one of Hajj, right? Of Hajj. What is day one of Hajj? Day one of Hajj corresponds to the 8th of Dhul Hijjah. Not Hayya, Hujjah, which corresponds to the 14th of June. Okay, day one. What are we going to do? That day, we're going to get into Ihram. Number two, we'll talk about that in a moment. Okay. So after you pray Fajr in Mecca, you should prepare to leave for Mina, ideally after sunrise. Okay. So then number two, we're going to head to Mina after sunrise. All right. It is recommended to stop close to the mosque at the mountain of Khayf at Mina and to stay there until sunrise of the 9th of Dhul Hijjah. We're going to talk about that. So 605. It's an emphasized sunnah to spend the night at Mina and hence to pray Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, and Fajr there. So Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, and Fajr. We're going to pray at Mina. It's emphasized, okay? But because it is not mandatory, there is no expiation for not doing so. But it does entail doing something wrong. It is valid, nevertheless, to leave Mina early, or to even spend the night in Mecca and go straight to Arafat. We're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about all that. Okay. So you want to stay there until sunrise, until the 9th of Dhul Hijjah. Okay. So let's go back up here. So we did day one of Hajj. I'm actually just gonna copy this, right? Copy, paste. Okay, so day one of Hajj. Now we're looking at day one. Now day two of Hajj, the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, which is the 15th of June, okay? Or actually, I'm just going to make our lives easier. Friday, June 15th, okay? This is or sorry, not Friday, June 15th. Saturday, June 15th. Right? Saturday, June 15th. This is Friday, June 14th. So Friday, June 14th. Okay. Now here we are, 9th of Dhul Hijjah. What's going to happen on the 9th of Dhul Hijjah? Let's see. On the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, one is going to head out to Arafat. Actually, I'll just bring this down because it's just easier to see here. Okay. We're at the 9th of Dhul Hijjah. One will head out for Arafat on the 9th. Basically, it says head out for Arafat before sunrise to the mosque of Namira. We are not going to directly go to the masjid from what I know, because again, there's going to be millions of people there, folks. Our point is to try and do this in the best way possible with ihsan, but at the same time, keeping in mind what is realistic and what is not realistic that we can do. So we're going to try and arrive basically at Arafah. So we're going to get to Arafah before Zawal. All right. Zawal is a time period which is roughly 10 to 15 minutes before the Dhuhr. You want to try to get there before Zawal. And we're going to stay at Arafah until sunset. That's what we're planning to do. Now, when we get to Arafah, we're going to pray Dhuhr and Asr at Dhuhr time. And listen to the khutbah. There's a khutbah that's going to be delivered there as well. And look, we're basically going to be there from what time? You're going to get there Zawal, you're going to leave at sunset. That time period, right? This is, right? The sun is going to set here. The sunrise is here. Zawal is here, right? Right now, what time is sunset in Mecca? Let's see. So sunset in Mecca right now happens at 6:57 p.m. And Zawal, let's see what time. It's at 10 minutes before Dhuhr, right? So Dhuhr in Mecca is at what time? Dhuhr is at 12:18 p.m. Okay. So let's say this is Dhuhr, or here, right? So 12:18 p.m. Let's say 12 p.m. This is Zawal time, okay? So you have this entire time period. These 7 hours, brothers and sisters, are very, very, very important. These are the times, this is what you're here for. This is Arafah. You are here for Arafah. Me and you came all this way because we are asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for Arafah to accept our Hajj, to ask, to forgive us for our past, to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless our future, to give much in our presence. So all of that is really important for us to understand. Okay. That's what Arafah is. This is what matters. So that it's literally the 7-hour period. That's what's going to matter. So we're going to pray Dhuhr and Asr there, right? With the head of, so they say with the head of the state or its representative. Basically, there's a designated imam. We'll pray with them. So this designated imam will combine these prayers. I'm sorry, I'm just going to close my window. One moment. Okay, so you're gonna basically pray after the sermon, right? They're gonna pray. You're gonna combine Dhuhr and Asr with the adhan and 2 iqamas, and then one should. Where did it go? Sorry. One should not separate the 2 obligatory prayers with voluntary prayers. So this is important. Between your Dhuhr and Asr, you don't pray any nawafil. You don't do other actions. This is the thing that matters at that time. Hence, you should do it. Do not do anything else. Okay. In 607, the author says that I don't think that's actually an important point right now. Let's just move on. If one misses the congregation with the head imam, that person will instead pray Asr in its normal time, according to Imam Abu Hanifa, because according to him, the congregation with the head imam, as well as being in a state of sanctity, are conditions for the validity of praying Asr early and combining it with Dhuhr. The other students, Abu Yusuf and Muhammad, maintain that even the pilgrim praying alone may combine the two prayers in the time of Dhuhr, which is more apparent in terms of strength. So basically, if you miss this is just giving a lot of details. So if you need to try and do your best to get the Jama'ah at Arafah, okay? Say you get there, say you arrive and the Imam has basically finished and you didn't make it there. Well, if you're making it there and you're praying in another jama'ah, do that. So listen to what your group leader tells you to do. It's really not that big of a deal. It's really not that big of a deal. The point is to get there before Maghrib. Okay? The point is to get there before Maghrib. But say, for example, it's taking a lot of time to get there, right? The reason they're saying that it's afdal, you're supposed to combine Dhuhr and Asr at Dhuhr time. But keep this in mind. The allowance for you to pray is until the end of Maghrib, right? So you have this entire time period that you pray Dhuhr and Asr, right? So say Asr time comes in here, right? Asr time comes in there, and then Dhuhr comes in here. So you're supposed to pray between this time, okay? But if you cannot, then you want to try your best to pray in Jama'ah. But if you know if you're going to miss the prayer, then even if you have to pray in this later time, you can. So it's not an issue. And yes, Sheikh Hasib once again mentioned that we will not be going to the masjid and we'll be having our own khutbah and jama'ah, because of the fact that the books of fiqh here are talking about it from the perspective of not at a time when you had 3 million people at Hajj. So we're going to be, inshallah, making our own jama'ah and it won't be an issue, inshallah. Okay, so once you are done, you're at Arafah, okay? You will then proceed to the standing place in Arafat, close to the mountain of mercy, Jabal al-Rahmah. Then one will perform the obligatory rite of wuquf, right? Wuquf there is in reference to standing, right? It says standing. And this is a good point to mention, right? They call it wuquf al-Arafah, standing. But you can also sit if you need as well. But the point of standing is being present. But if, say, for example, you can stand, you should stand. Say you cannot stand, you need to sit, then sit. If you cannot sit, you need to lie down, lie down. But the idea is that of being present. Hence, if the pilgrim is simply present at Arafat for even a moment within the valid time period for the rite, which is from Zawal of the 9th of the Hijjah until right before the 10th, which is Maghrib time, then he would have fulfilled the obligation. Now, don't get me wrong, there is still a wajib that has to be fulfilled. That wajib is that you need to remain there. You can't just be like a touch and go, say, okay, I was there, that's it. This holds even if we were simply passing through while asleep or without consciousness, completely unaware that the place is Arafat, or even a state of major ritual impurity. In whatever state you can get there, get there. That's the point that they're making. Okay. So one will perform this rite, this nusuk, which is what they're going to basically stand there or be present there. You're going to face the qibla. You're going to praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You will thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You will make takbir and tahleel and talbiyah. In tahleel, you're in talbiyah. You're going to send blessings upon the Prophet. You're going to make dua. You're going to make dhikr. That is the time for it. You have this 7-hour time period, brothers and sisters. Prepare for it now. Write down what du'as you wish to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Write down how it is you wish to praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ask yourself what type of life you want to live after you get out from Hajj. Allow this to be an opportunity of change for you. This is a time to plan it. Do not show up. Look, I have my calendar here, right? Today is the 26th of May. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, right? 18, 19, 20 days, roughly, until Hajj. 20 days. Write out what it is you want to do. What is it that you want to get from Hajj? It's not, I know this is a fiqh class. It's not just about the fiqh. It's about you putting your heart and soul into this thing that you have spent years of your life preparing for, years of your life saving up for. Don't let it go to waste. So we stay there until sunset, right? Once sunset hits, what starts? The 9th is finished, and now we have the 10th, right? After sunset, the 10th of Dhul Hijjah starts. All right. So now, what are we going to do? I'm going to grab this guy again. We are going to do a copy, go down here, paste. The 10th of Dhul Hijjah is what? Third day, right? The third day. Day 3, 10th of Dhul Hijjah. And the 10th of Dhul Hijjah is June 16th, right? So Sunday, June 16th. What are we going to have on Sunday, June 16th? Brothers and sisters, the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, and I'm going to actually highlight this thing because of the fact that the 10th of Dhul Hijjah is going to be the most important day. Not important in the sense of just being like Arafah, but it's going to be the busiest. This is the busiest day of Umrah, of Hajj, sorry. We're going to talk about what's going to happen. The 10th of Dhul Hijjah is the busiest day. All right, what are we going to do? The pilgrim then calmly departs for Muzdalifah. Now, this is interesting, calmly. Actually, I'll come back to that point. The pilgrim will calmly depart for Muzdalifah now, okay? So, on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, what are we going to do? We're going to leave for Muzdalifah. When we get to Muzdalifah, we're going to pray Maghrib and Isha in Muzdalifah. That's the first thing, right, at Muzdalifah. So we're going to depart from Muzdalifah. And you're going to pray Maghrib and Isha with one adhan and one iqamah. One may not pray Maghrib on the way before reaching Muzdalifah. Okay? You should not pray Maghrib before reaching Muzdalifah. And if one does so, whether in Arafat or on the way to Muzdalifah, he would incur sin for having omitted a mandatory requisite of delaying Maghrib until the time of Isha and praying them both in Muzdalifah. So it is wajib. This is important to keep in mind that amongst the Hanafis, delaying your Maghrib until Isha and praying them in Muzdalifah is wajib. Keeping that in mind. What is a wajib? A wajib means if you leave it out, you will have to pay a sacrifice. If you avoid it for whatever reason, you'll have to pay a sacrifice. So after spending the night in Muzdalifah, so also we're going to write that. So that night, we're going to spend night in Muzdalifah. Okay. You're going to then pray Fajr while it's still dark. Ghalas. Ghalas this just means that it's still dark outside. And this point is being emphasized here because in the Hanafi madhab, they actually prefer that you pray Fajr when it's a little bit lighter outside. That's why they're saying that they prefer when it's just a little bit lighter. So hence it's saying that you want to pray it earlier. After which you perform the mandatory rite of now standing or sitting or whatever in Muzdalifah. Okay, so you're going to spend the night in Muzdalifah. Then you're going to pray Fajr early in Muzdalifah. I'm just going to MZD. Then what are you going to do there? You're going to stay in Muzdalifah For what time? Between, now why is it we're praying Fajr early? After Fajr until sunrise, you will complete the standing of Muzdalifah, which is also wajib. Okay. And you're going to make dua at that time. Same thing. You're going to make dua at that time. Right now, Fajr, how long of a time period is that? Fajr right now in Mecca, so the time of Fajr is 4:13 a.m. as of today. So this is Fajr. What time is sunrise? 5:39 a.m. is sunrise. So let's say we pray at 4:20, right? And we're done by 4:30. So now for an hour, 1 hour and 9 minutes, we're going to once again spend time in dua, dhikr, etc. Okay? As sunrise approaches, we will head for Mina. Now, what day are we at? Right? What day are we at? We are still at day 3 of Hajj. So, after that, you're going to leave for Mina. All right? We're going to leave for Mina. And then what are we going to do at Mina? You begin the stoning. Okay? Start stoning the Jamarat. You're going to start stoning the Jamarat. There. Okay? 618. Yeah, so the time for stoning, it's mentioning here, it's on the 10th. It's going to start from after true dawn, right? And it ends at true dawn the next day. So you have roughly a 24-hour period. It is recommended to do the stoning between sunrise and midday. So we're going to get to Mina, right? And we're going to start stoning the Jamarat between sunrise and midday. I'm just going to write Zawal because I've already mentioned that term to you all. And Zawal. Then what's going to happen? It is recommended to do so between sunrise and midday, and it is permissible and not disliked until sunset. And it is valid yet disliked if you do it after true dawn on the 11th, meaning the actual time is that 24-hour period. So after the time has gone, if you do it, it's not, it's accepted, but it's just considered disliked. But if you do it afterwards, so what's the time period we said? It is valid yet disliked to do it until true dawn on the 11th, meaning what? You've extended it. So you're supposed to do it until. If you do it afterwards, you're supposed to sacrifice a sheep for delaying it past its valid time. So there's a lot of sections that go over what the sacrifice is. It's not that complicated. And inshallah, we'll talk about it. So coming back. So as sunrise approaches, he departs from Mina. He stones at the Jamarat. Al-Aqaba only. Jamarat al-Aqaba is the basically first pillar. Or there's 3 pillars. We're not going to do all of them right away. And you're going to start from the middle of the valley, casting 7 pebbles and saying Bismillah, Allahu Akbar with each throw. With the first throw, you're going to stop saying the talbiyah. Right? So the first throw. So here we're going to start. Leave from Mina, start stoning Jamrah between sunrise and Zawal. And you can continue until sunrise of the 11th of Dhul Hijjah. if for some reason you didn't get the time to do it. Where did it go? Now, one will continue to do that. What do you do afterwards? Right? The 10th is very important. So after you do that, right? After you do that, you'll basically slaughter your animal. You'll slaughter the hadi. And then after you slaughter the hadi, you will go down here. Let me actually just follow this. Right? Oops, sorry. I messed this one up. Let me come back here. You don't slaughter right away, is what I thought. You basically shave your head, shave or trim your hair. And then after you shave or trim your hair, you will sacrifice the hadi, which is the animal. Right, he then shaves his head or trims his hair. Shaving, however, is more superior. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam had blessed those that shave their heads. I'm forgetting the specific dua. Somebody asked the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Oh Allah, bless those that," or the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that, "Oh Allah, bless those that shave their heads," right? And then they just kept asking, "What about those? Wal muqassirin? What about those that make it short?" And the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he just kept saying that, "Oh Allah, bless those that shave their heads," and then he repeated that 3 times until he said wal muqassirin, and those that shorten their hair as well. For those of you that you should definitely shave your head. But if you cannot shave your head for whatever reason as a man, it's completely okay if you decide to trim it. To give you an idea for myself, I will not be shaving my head, mainly because the fact I get severe agitation whenever I do shave the top of my head. So what I will be doing is I'll basically just be trimming to a very short degree my hair. So don't feel bad if for whatever reason you cannot do it. And sisters, you'll be trimming as well. What's the amount that you need to trim? You need to trim about a fingertip, right? So about this much. Looks like an inch, basically. So you want to trim about an inch of hair off of your head, and you should be okay. Now, at this point, right, when you have done your shaving, you have come out of a minor state of pilgrim sanctity, right? So there is a different layers of ihram. The primary layer of ihram is done. You can basically put on scent. You can you don't have to be wearing the cloth that you're wearing, but the only thing that is not allowed yet are sexual relations, and we're going to talk about that in a moment, or anything that leads to sexual relations. Now, if somebody is performing Hajj Ifrad, then at that point they are going to perform a sacrifice if they'd like. But for the one that is doing Qiran or Tamattu', they have to do the sacrifice. It is wajib to sacrifice a sheep. And not only that, it is to do so before shaving the head. Okay? Actually, so what I was right about this. You are going to shave or trim your head, but not if you're in ifrad. So yes, you're actually going to sacrifice the hadi first, and then you're going to shave or trim your head if you're in tamattu or qiran. All of us are doing tamattu or qiran. If somebody is doing like hajj ifrad and you're in this group, you are paying way too much to do a hajj ifrad. You don't directly need us. You probably know how to do hajj if you live in Mecca and Medina. But if you're unable to sacrifice, say for whatever reason you are out of money, you cannot afford the sacrifice, then you need to fast 3 days from the beginning of the month before the day of sacrifice, and 7 days after Hajj, even if you're in Mecca. Meaning what? What days will you fast? So say again, we said that the hadi, the sacrifice, is wajib, right? It's wajib, right? It's wajib. But say that you don't possess what you need to do the hadi, right? For whatever reason, if you're unable to sacrifice, you can't afford it, whatever it comes down to, then you're going to fast 3 days. Which days are you going to fast? You're going to fast um, the 3 days before the day of sacrifice. So you would fast which days? You would fast the 9th, the 8th, and the 7th. You'd fast those days. And then when you're done with your ihram, whether you're in Mecca or you're in Medina or you're in the United States, you're going to go back and you're going to fast 7 more days afterwards, even if you're in Mecca. If one does not fast before the 10th, he must sacrifice a sheep as expiation. Now look at this, right? You need to fast because of the fact that you cannot afford to do the sacrifice. But say you did not fast those days beforehand. Now, even though you couldn't afford the sacrifice then, even at this point, now you have to find a way to make a sacrifice, right? So that's important to keep in mind. Okay, look, we're still here on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, right? We're still here on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. What do you do next? You've done the sacrifice. You have trimmed or shaved your hair. Now a very important point comes up. Tawaf al-ziyara. This is the tawaf that is necessary for me and you to do. Okay? Yeah. Right? So that's important to keep in mind. So let's talk about that. I'm actually going to move this down a little bit so that we can keep up with it. All right. Actually, go down more. Okay. Next, the pilgrim proceeds to Mecca for the tawaf of visitation, tawaf al-ziyara. It's known as different things. So you have tawaf al-ziyara. It's also called tawaf al-rukun. And it's also called tawaf al-ifada. Okay. It's called all those things. Which is the second of the 2 pillars of Hajj. What's the first pillar of Hajj, everyone? Ihram, right? Technically, it's Ihram. Then after that, when you are in Ihram, you have made intention for Hajj. The first thing you have to do is Arafah. Then the second thing you're going to do is standing or the tawaf of ziyarah, the tawaf of visitation. It is best to perform it on the day of Eid. Which day is that? The 10th. Right? The 10th is the day of Eid. If one delays it after the 3 days of sacrifice, which is past sunset on the 12th, then you must sacrifice a sheep as expiation. 623. Right? And not only that, it's considered makruh tahrimi to do it, to delay it until then, because performing the tawaf before sunset on the 12th is wajib. This ruling applies only to the one that is able to perform the rite. Hence, if a menstruating woman delays it past the 12th, meaning that she was in the state of haid, and after the 12th she was still in haid, and she was unable to perform it, even if it's only 4 of the 7 rounds due to her state of menstruation, then it is not sinful on her, nor is there a sacrifice due. But if she becomes pure before sunset on the 12th, with sufficient time to take ghusl, right? So you found out that before the 12th, before sunset on the 12th, say on the morning of June 18th or the evening of June 17th, you found out that you are good to go, like as a sister, you should take all necessary precautions, get ready, and go take care of your tawaf ziyarah and perform at least 4, right? Because 4 of the 7 rounds are what you need for your tawaf, for your Hajj to be valid. If that happens, it becomes mandatory to do so, and delaying it would be sinful and necessitate a sacrifice as expiation. Meaning what? If you were menstruating and you never were able to get into a state before the 12th to perform tawaf ziyarah, your Hajj is fine, and at the same time, you do not need to make a dam. If you got pure and you either delayed or you didn't do it, then you're going to have to give a dam for delaying it. So that's a point to keep in mind. coming back here. Yeah. So after this ceremonial rite, he has left the major state. Now look, after tawaf ziyarah, right? So here I want to actually make a line. So after you've done this, you have so you're done with a minor ihram over. After tawaf ziyarah, major ihram is over. Okay? The major ihram is over. That means now one is allowed to engage in sexual activity. That's all that basically means. Yes. So sexual relations are now permissible. Now, the tawaf is valid even if performed in a state of major ritual impurity, but it is sinful, and you would need to sacrifice a camel or a cow as expiation. If you performed it in a minor ritual impurity, then a sheep is due. All of these having to do with the with them, right? Them is basically the sacrifice, and the sacrifice can be of many types. The smallest sacrifice that you're going to have is a sheep. The bigger sacrifice is a cow, or actually, sorry, a goat. And then the biggest sacrifice here is a cow or a camel. So basically, the smaller the animal, the cheaper the animal. The cheaper the animal, the less of an infraction it will serve as. But say, for example, you are in a state of janaba, you are going to sacrifice the bigger, more expensive sacrifice here. Okay, we're still on the 10th, okay? So there's one more thing left for the 10th that's important for us to understand. The person will now return to Mina afterwards, okay? You're going to return to Mina afterwards. 625. Spending the night in Mina on each night of the 10th and the 11th is a sunnah, okay? If one does not do so, it is disliked, but no expiation is due. It is, however, mandatory to the other three schools of thought and should therefore be given consideration, meaning that, say something happens and you're like, I'm just going to stay in Makkah. I'm tired or something. You should avoid doing that. You should make your way back to Mina. And most likely, if you're in a group, you're going to make your way back to Mina anyways. So no issue in that sense. After midday, Zawal on the 11th, okay? The 11th. So now we are, look, it's a big day. Like I said, it's a very big day, right? Day 3 of Hajj is the biggest day. But now we're moving on to the 11th of Dhul Hijjah. The 11th of Dhul Hijjah is the day 4 of Hajj, right? So day 4 of Hajj is what? What did I write up here? It's the 11th of Dhul Hijjah, which is Monday, June 17th, okay? So that's what we're dealing with. What do we have here now? All right. Let's take a look at this. We're going to go back to Mina. And again, Mina is where all of the stoning and the jamarat and stuff is going to happen. So when you return to Mina, after you're going to get sleep or whatever, right? After Zawal on the 11th, one is going to stone all three jamarat, beginning with the one immediately adjacent to the masjid, followed by the next one next to it, and then ending at Jamarat al-Aqaba. For where did it go? Yeah, so when we go back to Mina on day 3, remember we only stone this one, right? On day 3, you only stone this. Now on day 4, so again, between after Zawal, right? So after Zawal, you're gonna stone all 3 jamarat. You're gonna stone all 3 jamarat. And then on the 12th, you're going to do the same thing, right? And then you're gonna stay in Mina at night. Then you have day 5, right? You have the 12th of Dhul Hijjah, and then you have Tuesday, 6/18. What are you going to do? You're gonna stay there and do the same exact thing. After Zawad, you're going to stone all 3 jamarat. Okay. At this point, if one wishes to depart early from Makkah, they may do so. And that should be after sunset. If, however, he stays in Mina until sunset, it is disliked to leave for Mecca, yet no expiation is due. What time are we talking about? The 12th, okay? So after Zawaj, stone all 3 Jamarat. You're going to stay in Mina until sunset, depart for Mecca after. All right? We're day 5. And then what? Let's see. If he stays in Mina until the entrance of true dawn on the 13th, he must perform the stoning. So say you decide to basically, excuse me, stay until the 13th, right? The next day. You have to perform another stoning, which on this day is valid, even if it's before midday. Now, what about the Jamarat? Now, what should Jamarat look like? So basically, you're going to go between each one of the Jamarat. You're going to stone. And then after the stoning, you're going to make dua. Then the second stoning, between the second and third pillar, you're going to make dua again. And then the third stoning, there's no dua after. You're done, basically. So here, the author says, any stoning at a site that is followed by stoning at the next site is to be performed while walking, as opposed to on foot rather than while riding one's mount, so that one can stop and stand to make dua afterwards. Other than these, one does so ideally while riding on his mount so he can leave afterwards without stopping for supplication. Obviously, for those of you that have done Hajj, you've seen that you can't really bring a horse inside. There's actually I think it was like an Instagram reel or something that had seen where this guy, he was really, really mad at Shaitan. So other Hujjaj were actually ducking from him because he was like, he thought he was going to throw it looked like he was going to throw a cricket ball or something at the Jamarat. So he's like, Ya Allah, and he goes running from the back to the front and people are moving out of their way. I was like, you know what? He shouldn't be doing that, but that's some admirable, that's some very admirable dislike this gentleman has for Shaitan, mashallah. Yeah. Yeah, basically. There's a question that came. I think the notes need to be corrected. Don't we need to leave for Mecca before sunset on the 12th? Yes, you're right. Sorry. Yeah. Not before. No, sorry, not after, before. Mecca, depart from Mecca before sunset. Thank you for that correction. Okay. Where did it go? Okay, so there's a lot here that I don't have time. Actually, it's not that much. So next, so inshallah, you left, right? Before the entrance of the 13th. So now we are at day 6, 13th of Dhul Hijjah, right? So day 6, 13th of Dhul Hijjah, which is the June, what day is it? It is Wednesday, June 19th. Okay, what do we have going on here? Here you are going to have the most important ending, farewell tawaf. Okay. So what's going to happen at the farewell tawaf? At the farewell tawaf, it is mandatory, it's wajib, for all pilgrims except those residing in Mecca. Why is it? Because of the fact that you're basically going to, like, if you live in Mecca, you can't like leave Mecca. When you're doing tawaf al-wada, you're saying bye bye Mecca, but you can't say bye bye to Mecca if you live in Mecca. So what do? He performs the 2 rak'ahs of tawaf, right? And then he goes to the area of Zamzam. So you'll go in, you'll perform the tawaf, right? So you'll do your 7 rounds. And then afterwards, you'll pray the 2 rak'ahs. And then you go and drink Zamzam. And it's sunnah to stand and face the Qibla, swallow in gulps, breathe into the vessel. Multiple times while drinking. With each gulp, raise your glance towards the Kaaba. Pour some of it over your body or wipe your body with it. I mean, I'm sure we're going to be, putting a lot of water on our bodies while we're at Hajj. It's going to be hot out there. He should take out the Zamzam by himself if he is able to do so, and while drinking it, should pray for anything that he wishes. And then the rest of this, it's all it's not necessarily a part and parcel of what do you call it? Anything else here. So I'm actually going to just get to this point. In all of this is an important question. In all the rites of Hajj and Umrah, the woman does the same thing as the man, except for the following. She does not uncover her head, right? If you're wearing a face covering, she should, if she is wearing a face cover, she should place something on her head to keep the face cover at a distance from her face. Meaning what? Say you're used to covering your face. This is actually something to consider. So, for those of you that will be wearing a face mask, you have to give sadaqah, right? For wearing a face mask, according to the Hanafis. If any of the other shuyukh have anything to say, they can bring it up. But amongst the Hanafis, you're supposed to give sadaqah. But if you're a woman and you're wearing a mask that is actually not touching your face, but it's just dangling, it's not directly touching. It's actually not an issue. She can do that. But there shouldn't be direct skin context. So sisters do not raise their voices when they're doing talbiyah. You don't do ramal. You don't have to like run when you're in umrah. You don't have to run between the green lines and sa'i. Obviously, she doesn't shave her head. She just trims it. She's allowed to wear stitched garments, and she should not go in between this is the other thing, right? It's pretty obvious that if you see a crowd of a lot of men, you just want to move away from there. That's whether that's the black stone or whatever, you want to try your best to avoid it. And then this concludes the ceremonial rites of Hajj. The pilgrim then departs from Mecca, and then visiting the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is an emphasized sunnah. People will be going beforehand or afterhand. Our group will be going to Medina afterwards. And Mecca is deemed better than Medina, except for the ground that is honored with the blessed body of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it's a bit more that we can go into, but I think this should suffice, inshallah, for the fiqh section. So for anyone that has, what do you call it? For anyone that basically has questions, you can go ahead and type them in. There were several questions that I had from last week, so I'm going to go ahead and answer those as well. Okay. All right, so there was one question. If I'm a sister that's menstruating, how do I go about, how do I get into ihram? Yes, you get into ihram. You do all the rites, except that of the umrah that is associated to it. I'm sorry, so the tawaf. So, we discussed how the tawaf issue is handled, right? There's 3 potential tawafs that will occur. Number 1 is the tawaf of qudum. There's no obligation to do that, so you don't do that. Then there is the tawaf of ziyara or ifada, basically tawaf al-rukun. We mentioned that if the sister is able to come to a state where she is clean and has enough time to do it, she does it. But say she gets clean and she doesn't do it for whatever reason, then she would pay the dam. But if she does not have enough time to get clean, then after that, there is no dam on her, and there is also no sin on her. There's no reason to redo anything, and her Hajj is fine. Can PDF of this material be shared with us? This has been mentioned several times. just Google Ascent to Felicity PDF. This is the third session, so please go ahead and take a look at that. Does the Hanafi opinion allow covering of your hands when you're in ihram? I mean, you can cover your hands whether you're in ihram or not. Whether you're a man or a woman doesn't make a difference. Can you please also explain if women can pray janazah prayer in Mecca and Medina, and how is it done? So janazah prayer is permitted for man or woman to pray, as long as a sister is not menstruating, she's not on her period, she can pray it. How do you pray janazah? In the haram, they tend to have a janazah almost every single prayer. So the Hanafi way to pray janazah is that there's four takbirat. In the first takbir, the imam will say Allahu Akbar, and you'll tie your hands, and you'll read the thana, Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdika wa tabarak asmuka wa ta'ala jadduka, with the addition of wajala thana'uka wa la ilaha ghayruk, and Surah Al-Fatiha if you'd like to. Then the Imam will say Allahu Akbar again, but you don't raise your hands. And that's where you send salawat upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. At the third takbir, you'll again say Allahu Akbar. You don't raise your hands. You keep them tied, and you'll pray for the deceased. Allahumma ighfir li hayyina wa mayyitina wa shahidina wa ghaibina wa saghirina wa kabirina. There's a dua. Look it up. It's if you know it, great. If not, you can simply say Allahumma ighfir lahu for a man, or Allahumma ighfir laha for a woman. And then there's another dua for a child. Allahumma ja'alhu lana faratan. Same thing. Just look up the dua. So take a look at it. And then at the fourth takbir, the Imam will say Allahu Akbar. And then there's two salams. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. That's the general Hanafi way to do Salatul Janazah. Salatul Janazah in the Haram is not prayed exactly like that. In the Haram, they do the same thing, four takbirat, but between each takbir and the Imam says Allahu Akbar, they raise their hands and they tie them. It's up to you. You don't have to. And then at the same time, they only do one salam. So in the Haram, they'll say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and Salatul Janazah is done. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Can you review the preconditions for an accepted Hajj, resolving debts, asking for forgiveness? Neither of those are preconditions for an accepted Hajj. Because the whole resolving debts thing, now that's a fiqh issue, and I'm going to make it very simple. Your mortgage, your car payment, your all these things are not classified as direct debts that will be a hindrance to basically things being paid off, because of the fact that those are long-term debts that are owed to larger institutions, in which even like if you have a mortgage, that does not take away from you not having to give zakat. It's all about the cash that you have that lapses over a year that you're sitting on. So that's one. Now, if you owe someone like $10,000, right? And you have assets to say that, hey, for example, after my passing, God forbid, someone passes away, you have systems in place to make sure that your assets pay everyone that is due money. So if you have that set up, no issue. Asking for forgiveness, look, you can ask for forgiveness, right? But that's not a precondition of Hajj, right? That's not a precondition of Hajj. If you think you wrong someone, sure, but it's not a precondition of Hajj. The preconditions of Hajj, we've mentioned it. Like who is Hajj obligatory upon? Like what are the first thing that what are some of the first things you have to do when it comes to Hajj? Well, number one, you have to be Muslim, you have to be baligh, you have to be mentally sane, you have to be healthy, and you have to have enough money to spend the ticket to go there, to ride a plane to go there, to handle your expenses at home, and you won't be dependent on anyone else, and the road is safe. So those are the preconditions of Hajj. Secondly, if I have a detailed question related to a debt, may I DM you or another specific scholar on Telegram? Please, if any particular case it makes a difference. Sure, why not? Go ahead, no issue there. Let's see. In the Hanafi school, does one wear the ihram or normal clothing when doing tawaf ziyarah? Well, I'll tell you this much. I don't know how it was last year. Or sorry, I know last time when we went, they weren't even allowing people into the area without ihram. So I think you're gonna just be wearing your ihram even if you're not in the state of ihram. But um, for tawaf ziyarah, you are going to, yeah. Didn't what did I mention here? In tawaf ziyarah, uh where did sorry, let me look at this again. I thought I wrote this out over here. Okay, so look, minor ihram, right? So in tawaf ziyarah, you're still doing it that day. So you're technically you can remove your ihram, but I think we're all still going to be wearing the actual ihram cloth. So the minor ihram is over. Like you can put you don't have to necessarily wear the cloth. The only thing that's not allowed is sexual relations or anything that relates to it. Then once you're done with tawaf ziyarah, then yes, your entire thing is over. But most likely like you don't have to wear the ihram in tawaf ziyarah, but I think that's what everyone's going to be wearing for the most part from what I remember. Mm, when does the time for Rami end on the 11th and 12th? The sunset of those days or until sunrise the next day? So the last Rami, as I said, we're going to be leaving on the 12th, right? So we want to depart before Maghrib on the 12th of Dhul Hijjah, right? Because then the 13th will come in. If you stayed in Mina after Maghrib on the 12th, then you're going to have to stay basically until Fajr the next day and then until sunrise, right? Basically, that's when you're going to, and then you can leave after sunrise because you're going to do the, you have until after Zawal basically. So you want to try not to do that. You want to be out with everyone. Uh, Let's see. The book title is Ascent to Felicity. Good, someone typed it in. Do we need an Umrah permit from the Nusuk app for our initial Umrah? How about Tawaf Ziyarah? I would request that you send any logistical questions to Sheikh Hasib or refer to the packet. I honestly don't know. Shouldn't one bathe and clean up before Tawaf Ziyarah? Yeah, you can bathe like if you want to. No one's stopping you. I mean, like if you're a brother, right, and you just like choose not to bathe the entire time, like I can't be your friend. Again, if you're wearing ihram, like you can take a shower, people. Please take showers. Take plenty of showers. Take plenty of showers. What if I have a mortgage that is only $10,000? Will that be considered debt? What is the hudud? Not hudud, but it's not about the amount. Do you have a system set up in which the government, like for example, God forbid you pass away, the state will get its money, my friends. The state will always get its money, one way or the other. So it's not about the number; it's about the contract you have set up. This is just for my own knowledge. Do some Malikis prefer to do Hajj Ifrad even when not residing in Mecca? I do not know. Sheikh, assalamu alaikum. Are you in C3000? I am in A5000. Can you please write the name of the book on the edge of the page as you didn't? Sister, they just asked up above. So if you look here, what is the book title again? Sister Khalud asked, and sister or brother Kothar, I'm not sure. That's it. Ascent to Felicity. It's written above. Um, so there's that. There was something else I feel like someone had asked me. So in Makkah, is a Makkah local allowed to do Hajj Qiran? That is, if someone is in Makkah, are they allowed to go to Masjid Aisha and put on an ihram? Well, again, if you have a local and they want to do Hajj Qiran, I don't see why not. But again, I would assume they would do Hajj Ifrad because of the fact that they live there. But I'll take a look at it. Also, is sa'i required for those doing Hajj Qiran? For those doing Hajj Qiran, yeah, you do two in Umrah and a Hajj in a single ihram. So you do first you do the tawaf and the sa'i of the Umrah, and then you're going to do the tawaf and the sa'i of the Hajj. So if you're doing Hajj Qiran, you do two. Uh, Khair. That's basically it, everyone. Um, yeah, that's all I have for you, to be honest. There's a lot more that look, you're gonna like I said, if you can get this book and just take this section with you, print it out or something, you can find it online. Um, there's a lot of stuff here, and the point is not to become inundated. The point is you want to enjoy your Hajj to the best extent possible. And jinayat, different types of sacrifices. It's there, but I think for the most part, this is what matters. Like the 5 days that I just mentioned to you all, they're the 6 days of Hajj. Like this is what matters. This is what you should really be focused on, inshallah. And if you do that well, you'll see that your life will be much, much, much easier, inshallah. Okay. And just a request, if in the group you have a question, um, in the group, if you have a question in Telegram, simply if it's directed to me, just simply tag me, like hit at Nihal or whatever my name is on Telegram, so that I can easily see the message and respond to you, inshallah. But as you know, there's a lot of messages in the groups, so forgive us if we miss them. Just simply tag me, so you can go ahead and do that. Do they let you enter without ihram for ziyarat? I don't know, but the last few years post COVID, they generally don't let people in. From what I remember, if they change it this year, I don't know. So from what I would say, for guys, even if you're not in the state of ihram, just try your best to wear the ihram as much as possible. But unless someone tells you otherwise, for now, just make that the assumption. So no additional sa'i in tamattu'. Well, the sa'i that you're going to do is going to be which one of the umras. So for Hajj tamattu', let me see here. Right. So for tamattu', what we're going to do is yeah. So you're going to yeah, because your first umrah, you did the sa'i. So you're fine there. Right? After you do that umrah, you come out. Then after that, you stay in Mecca. Then afterwards, when the days of Hajj come in, you get back into ihram, and then you're going to do all the actions of Hajj ifrad, basically, right? Where did this other point go? Yeah, same thing. You're going to do the hadi and the sacrifice. You're going to do everything there, right? So then, yeah, that's basically it. Thank you, Sister Praveen. Jazakumullahu khairan. Okay, folks, inshallah, we're at time. So, inshallah, look forward to seeing you all in a few weeks. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept us, accept our Hajj, and allow us to be ready for this, right? And take it easy. Don't sweat things, right? Take things easy. Just relax. We appreciate the questions, but don't feel anxious, right? Don't feel anxious. Just go with the flow. You're going into the ocean of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's going to carry you on his waves. جزاكم الله خيرا سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته